And we're back. It is Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, so you know what time it is. It's time to jump off. Hello, world. It's your man, Jeff A. Smith, jumping off once again on Jumpoff Live, and welcome to episode number 23. Tonight, we'll be discussing an officer-involved shooting of a 13-year-old boy in the Little Village neighborhood of Chicago, and also the wave of attacks against the Asian community. As always, you can tune in live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on our Jump Off Live YouTube channel. There you'll also find our past episodes, after parties, original ads, and the Anything But interview series. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and also hit that notification bell. You can also catch us on Zingo TV channel 250 by downloading the app, which is available on the iOS and Google Play stores. If you're on the go, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Shout out to all the fans in the chat, and please be sure to keep your comments clean so we can post them on the screen. And I'm also excited to just be here tonight. We have a very special guest in the building, which we'll get to momentarily. But first and foremost, we're going to kick it over to the man, the myth, the legend, that dude named Dave. What's popping, that dude?
Hey, man, I'm actually doing really good, man. Can't complain. I got my restitution check this weekend. Can I give a quick story time here? To start this off here. So this weekend, moms had called me.
We didn't say yes.
No, I don't care. Right. I just bogarted, So moms had called me up like, yo, you got a letter from the county. I'm like, oh snap. Let me see what this is, right? I don't know why I'm getting letters to the old address for whatever reason. And I go over there. I was like, what's this here? And it says, reparations. And I was like, oh no. I was like, restitution. And the county gave a brother a check for $500, yo.
The county?
Yeah, $500. You know why?
The government.
10 years ago, when we was doing our very first podcast, fellas. And it was like a weekend. I was actually going to see my pops in the hospital. I had my mom's in the car with me. And I literally a half mile from the hospital, I look in the rearview mirror and see this guy not stopping. I braced myself and dude ran right into us. Cut him off. He was going to do a hit and run. Dude get out the car, didn't speak no English. He had no insurance, had no license. I was there, hold dude down till the police came. And then next you know, my pops was on the second floor and I was on the first floor of the ER because of the accident.
Hey, this is such an interesting story, man. It's almost like we should really be expounded on this. But when you say holding them down, you mean in like the literal sense?
I pushed him. I pushed him. He tried to get out the car and run. He's like, what? I was like, and then like other cars were around, and then they cut the whole thing off. And then the cops came like a minute later and everything, and the ambulance came because it was right there by the Bolingbrook Hospital. So, and then so he got arrested, and there was a warrant for dude, but then he skipped town and he'd been out of pocket for 9 years.
You sound like a smart man.
And so what happened with my situation, I had to sue my old insurance company because he had no insurance and he skipped town. And then I had to drop my insurance, get another insurance because, if you do something like that, they're going to raise your rates. So lo and behold, I pulled up and then he came out of nowhere during COVID, had a warrant, and they showed him for a video bench warrant. And then now he's locked up in county right now.
And you got the 5.
And I'm holding the 5 down, baby. Deposit already.
5.
All right.
Thanks, thank you, Jesus.
Hey man, you go hold the check up. Next up, I'm moving on, man. Next up,
you know what though? He hit me and fucked up my back. All right, that's besides the point.
Hey.
Oh, sorry, I said F right. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Next up, we have JD. What's popping, JD?
Not much. That's it.
I'm gonna have to do a better job of moderating. I see, because people get, what I'm saying, loose lips sink ships. You good, JD?
Yeah, man, I'm great.
Okay,
just ready to get this popping, man.
Exactly. That's it. That's all, huh?
Jeff can't be happy for me. That's all I can see.
No restitution story for you, huh, JD? All right. Next up, we have with a brand new background, Johnny Dangerous.
Yeah, hey, don't even edify this background. This background is like some Rap City in the basement type stuff.
Going live from the bunker.
You know
Where Tigger at?
Yeah, 8 Mile. Hey man, what's up, everybody? It's Wednesday, getting you over the hump today. I'm very excited today to be jumping off live with y'all because of our special guest. But before we get to our guest, a few things happened this last week. It seemed like something crazy happening every day, but a couple of iconic things that I want to mention in particular. I want to say shout out to Godzilla versus Kong. We're gonna have to talk about that at some point in the future. That finally came out. The second thing is I want to give a shout out to the Isley Brothers versus Earth, Wind, and Fire. That was an epic battle. That was epic, man.
I didn't get a chance to watch it. I heard it was epic, except for the point at which they played "Contagious," written by you know who, featuring you know who. Was that fair?
I never even thought about that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
man. Dang, that's a whole nother topic we could talk about too.
Yeah, never mind.
And yeah, but that
the
was
whole beard situation.
Huh?
And the whole beard situation.
The beard?
Yeah. Isley got a whole new legion of fans now, man.
Oh yeah. They say he's the king of the sugar daddies.
He grew his beard out and gets all great. And man, and every girl from like 19 to 75 was up in his mentions.
He put sugar daddies on a whole.
Yeah. The sugar daddy game is up here now because this dude, man. Lord have mercy.
He looked like a pimped out Papa Smurf, man. He had the fur coat on and everything. You know, Ron. He had his cane and all of that. Wow.
He had Z status with the Zaddy. That's crazy, man.
You said I ain't hating. Hey, Dave, don't you ever say Zaddy again.
I know. I'm saying what the women are saying, man. I'm not saying it. They saying it. Good God.
And then the last thing before we get started, I wanted to say prayers and blessings, man, to DMX, man. As we all know, DMX is in the hospital right now of an apparent overdose. He's breathing on his own. But as far as we know, there's not really a whole lot of activity going on there. So it's a lot of, they have a vigil right outside of the hospital. A lot of folks are praying. The Rough Riders out there. He's got a whole lot of support, man. DMX, to me, is a hip hop legend. The things that he was able to accomplish in his time, his poetic, artistic flow is unique, unlike any other. And to me, regardless of whatever happens to him, he has created a legacy that is of his own, man, and a lot that he can be proud of, even in the midst of these troubling times. And so we send him our prayers and thoughts and best wishes, and his family as well. But regardless of what happens, man, proud of that brother for what he's done, and not only for the hip hop community, but just as a black man, one of the best hood movies that you'd ever watch would be Belly. I don't think anybody could have played his part any better, man.
Facts.
And that duo he had with Nas, man, it was iconic, man. Just the way that Lennox, it was beautiful, man. And so without any further ado, I want to take this time out to introduce one of my dogs, someone I consider a brother amongst these brothers that's here on this platform, someone that's also a friend of JR, who's also been on the show, hosted the show, someone that I have known now, man, probably almost 20 years now. I had an opportunity to serve in the military, and after September 11th, they augmented. I was in the Air Force. The Air Force augmented Army personnel to come work with us to up and beef security. And I was so blessed to have this brother, along with JR, come for the Army unit and come work with us for some time. And we just clicked. We hit it off from there, man. So he worked side by side as a security police officer with me during my tenure at Edwards Air Force Base. This gentleman went on to do greater and bigger things as he continued to serve our country. He retired 20 years of military service, ended up switching over from the Army to the Air Force, because he saw the writing on the wall, and he's a smart man. He went on to get a degree in Homeland Security and Emergency Management. He has a 14 years plus of experience as a police officer. And like I said, 20 years of the reserves and 5.5 years active duty military. Folks, without any further ado, please, let's give a warm welcome to none other than Officer Lee. Officer Lee, welcome to the show, brother.
There we go.
Well, thank you for having me, man. You know, like he said, man, we go way back. A lot of fun times, ups, downs. We've been partners through thick and thin in life situations, good and bad. And I mean, you know, it's rare you find quality people. You know, he's all from the Midwest. I think he is probably the best person from Chicago I ever met. And I still got to get to y'all great city because of this great man, you know?
Wow.
It's been a great journey. Like you said, it's been almost 20 years, man. I mean, what? When we met, my son was 3 years old with the Ninja Turtle staff whacking people and all that stuff. Remember that?
Yeah.
So it's been a long time because he was 3 then, 21 now. So yeah, like you said, it's almost 20 years. So yeah, man. But we've had good times, and look, it's a blessing. So when he called and said, hey, he'd like for me to speak on y'all's show, which I'm very proud you guys are out here doing this, you know, making it happen. I remember when y'all first did it, and I'm glad to see y'all up and running again, you know, pursuing your dream and making it happen. So I couldn't say no. I said, yeah, man, just, hey, let me know what you need. I'm going to be there for you, and we'll make it great, you know. We actually started a little something, back in Security 4 and all them days, and just clowning around. So seeing him do it is like, oh, my God. Went from clowning and he making this really happen. So that's great.
Yeah, we did some sketches together back in the day as well. And so I guess you could say he was part of the pioneering of the creation of Johnny Dangerous and this crazy mind of mine. And so I want to go ahead and push forward tonight, as Jeff spoke earlier about. We want to talk about an officer-involved shooting in regards to a fatal shooting that happened on March 29th, just Monday, of a 13-year-old boy in Little Village. His name is Adam Toledo. And so I'm briefly going to go over the article here. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot on Monday called for reforms to how police pursue suspects on foot and urged a thorough, expeditious investigation into the death of a 13-year-old boy who was shot by a Chicago police officer last week. But hours later, the family of Adam Toledo, who dreamed of becoming a police officer and was killed March 29th after police chased him into an alley, said they still hadn't seen the body cam video of the incident and were concerned by officials. Hurtful and false mischaracterizations of Adam. We have requested expedited meetings with patient authorities to obtain evidence and to view the police body camera footage and other available video. To date, we have not received confirmation of a time to view the footage, family said in the statement through their attorneys, Adina Wise Ortiz and Joel Herschel. Tensions remain high across the city as the Civilian Office of Police Accountability prepares to release what is called troubling video footage of the shooting. Lightfoot said the tragedy emphasizes the need to change Chicago police foot pursuit policy, saying much pursuits are one of the most dangerous activities police engage in because they are often separated from their partners and communication becomes difficult. She said there will be focus groups of officers and community members to evaluate best practices. We will not push the foot pursuit reform off for another day, Lightfoot said at a news conference at New Life Church on the city's west side. No longer can we afford to put off to tomorrow what we can address today because lives are truly at stake. Now, that's one narrative of the situation and the story. And I wanted to play the video because the video is what really caught my eye. Initially, the video illustrated Adam Toledo's mother speaking on his behalf and saying, you know, basically that he dreamed of becoming a police officer and he was a good kid. And one of the things that really resonated with me was when she spoke and said that there could have been something else police officers could have did opposed to shooting him in that situation. Toledo allegedly had a gun. Toledo allegedly shot or fired that gun. You get so many different perspectives with all these different shootings that occur, particularly in Chicago. Chicago, we hear about shootings happening every day, especially this time of year. And as the temperature increases, it seems like the violence increases. This has been an ongoing battle, a war on violence before I was born. And so, for one, I hate to see such a beautiful city like Chicago, our home, become terrorized and rippled with bullets and violence that's occurring on a day-to-day basis. It's like the street codes are not in place anymore. Kids are getting shot, babies are getting shot, elderly people are getting shot. Man, it's just absolutely nuts. And so what happens quite often is when a child, this young man, Toledo, was 13 years old. Automatically, when we hear of a police officer shooting a kid, it automatically looks like the police officer used excessive force when shooting a kid, when a lot of times we don't even know all the facts. Now, we didn't see the body cam, so we can't even really speak on exactly what occurred, but only what was reported. I felt like it was necessary to talk about the violence that's going on across the world, period, but particularly in the city of Chicago. And I definitely wanted to bring an officer, Officer Lee, on to discuss and give us a different perspective from a police officer's point of view on dealing with those type of situations, because it's so easy for us looking on the outside in and saying the police officers are automatically wrong, especially when it comes to shooting our children. And so with that, I would love to get everybody's opinion, but I'm going to start off with Officer Lee. You can just share whatever that you'd like to share from a police officer's perspective. We're all ears. You got the floor, sir.
Man, this is always a tough one. So I'm going to change the scenery and I'm going to let everybody get their opinions with it first, because all I saw was a video that you had sent. I wasn't able to find a lot more of it. And from the video I remember seeing, you had the mother saying, hey, my son got shot. But then you had the news saying that, there were some other things that had happened and whatnot. But first of all, let me say this, and I think I'll speak for all officers. No one likes for any life to be lost. Take the hat away of being an officer, just as a human being. A life being lost is not a joy for any decent person, right? So nowadays you have a lot of focus on these situations. And so all we can really do is figure some things out. Meaning, all right, how are we going to learn from this? Because I'll get back to it after everyone else talks. But I think right now, people are more focused on finding solutions, whether that be social or what. So, but first and foremost, no officer cares when any life, whether it be an officer or just a citizen of the United States, even a foreigner, keep in mind, we have shootings that happen outside of our country as well. You see it on the news, and I don't think that puts a smile on anyone's face. But let's chime in so I can answer some of y'all's questions and whatnot.
If I could jump in real quick, first off, all of these situations take place in like split seconds. So as an officer, my first question is, what is the protocol for a situation that determines that lethal force is advised?
Are you ready for me to answer that? Because I think we froze for a second.
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
You asked what's the
question?
protocol for making a split-second decision?
Yeah, making a split-second.
Did you ask me what's the
split-second
protocol
decision to use lethal force?
Okay, so there's no protocol for that. Let me give you an example. You got to use the bathroom really bad, and you can't reach a toilet, but you got to go. You don't want to go in public, but there's a wood line there. It's kind of one of those things. I'm not trying to make light of it, but there's no way you can write a protocol on split-second decision making. It's going to be based upon what you have at that moment in time, and that's why I gave that example of you really got to use a bathroom, and you're going to do it the decent way or undecent way in a sense. It's just one of those things where you got to go and hopefully you made that right decision. Now, let's talk about things beforehand. You know, your awareness and whatnot. Whereas a nature of a call, what you're going into, that's the things that you can kind of prepare for in a sense. But as far as like, hey, someone jumps out the closet and they got a 12 gauge shotgun, well, you're going to have to make a decision.
Anybody else have a question?
I don't know if JD had a follow up.
Oh, no. I didn't have a follow up question.
Okay.
That makes sense. I just think that it's such it's a tough decision, and personally, I wouldn't want to be in that position where I have to make those choices that involve life and death like that. It really has to weigh on a person's mind and spirit when they know that each day they get up and they go into work, that it could turn into something like that. And I really, you know, coming from a family where I have multiple police officers in my family. I have you know, two uncles that were police officers, one in the military, one for the Chicago police force. I also have an aunt who was a state trooper. I have two other cousins that were state troopers. And, you know, my heart goes out to them and to anybody else who's a police officer, because it has to be difficult to make those type of split-second choices. If I had to ask one more question, when okay, maybe this is too personal for you, Officer Lee, but if you had, knowing the things that you know about this situation and the details are kind of sketchy, would you have felt comfortable pulling the trigger and taking, you know, this person's life, considering the circumstances and the details that you know about it, knowing that you weren't there, but considering all the circumstances that you know about as of now? What would have been your action in this type of situation?
I caught the last bit of what you said, and I think how would I have responded? You know, I'm actually glad you asked that, because I think a lot of people think what you thought. And you said something earlier about you got a lot of family and whatnot, and you realize that the decision-making process can be very difficult, being that you have to make split-second decisions in law enforcement. And the honest thing is, I can't give an honest answer, because when let's take it off me and put it on you. You're driving a car, right? Something jumps out in front, like, what do? Would it be the same thing each and every time?
Yeah, that's powerful when you word it like that and put it that way, because you know, when you say it like that, we don't know how we would react depending upon what the situation is. So it sounds like, I mean, that sounds like it's true that police officers have to make split-second decisions, you know, on a daily basis. Is there any part of police training that tries to really get to the crux of that and really try to I guess focus on split-second decision making? Is there any is there any part of the protocol of training to focus on certain situations, be it role playing, you know, that type of thing, because it's such an integral part of your job? And I know you all can't just go on the street just blindly not being and not have practiced certain situations and scenarios. So what types of training is involved as it relates to split-second actions?
Good question.
Great question. So, yes and no. All right, keep this in mind, guys. You guys in Chicago, I'm in California, right? Each department is like its own company. Okay, meaning the job is the same, but name 5 fast food restaurants that you go to, or 5 burger joints. I remember y'all did a show about In-N-Out. So we got In-N-Out, Burger King, McDonald's, Hardee's, and I don't know what's the Chicago local
Fat
thing.
Burger.
Well, no, give me a Chicago. We got Fat Burger. What's the Chicago? All right. So they
Freddy's.
Yeah, there you go. So they all do burgers, fries, milkshakes, and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping that all the meat is beef if they sell the burger, right?
Right.
But their process is different. So keep that in mind when it comes to policy making. Even though it's similar, because they're all different companies, their policies are different. Okay, but the product is the same. And I think that's where it gets so confusing with civilian, because it's like, well, y'all serving burgers and fries. Everybody serve burgers and fries. It's got to be a universal way to do burgers and fries, right? It's not necessarily the case, to answer that part.
I got you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Taking a step back, I do want to, and I should have said this at the beginning.
So back to the thing on the scenario.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I missed your question. Could you ask it again, please?
No. I was I cut you off. Finish your point. Go ahead. I was just saying I cut you off by mistake, so you can go ahead and finish what you were saying, Officer Lee.
Oh, okay. Sorry, this thing is freezing up, so I'm trying hard to concentrate on what y'all asking. So back to the training thing. Yes, there is training, but did any of you guys play sports at all?
Yes.
Okay. You guys are gonna know I'm gonna use a lot of examples here, okay? Because I think the problem with it is when we have these conversations, we don't relay them in a relatable way, and we got to start doing that. We need to put scenarios in a way where the average person could relate to it, because decision making is decision making. The unfortunate thing is that being in law enforcement, yes, a lot of times a life is lost, but decision making is decision making. You make a good one, a bad one, or you make a good one and it can turn out bad. But was your intention for it to be bad? You got to keep that. How many times in life have you guys done what you felt at that moment in time was the right thing? All right, your intention was 100% right, no malice or forethought, but yet maybe someone else got hurt because of it. That wasn't your intention, right? You had no malice or forethought, but your actions, it's like we're taught when we're young, the consequences aren't just for you, right? So that's what happens a lot. So in the training, guys do receive training, but everyone don't make varsity. And if you are on varsity, everyone don't make first string. So unfortunately, due to the hiring process and policies, sometimes you'll get people on that meet the qualifications. But it's just like getting into a college. Everybody that meet those qualifications don't make them A students. They might be some C students.
That makes a lot of sense, man.
That's something right there. That the fact that you can break it down like that, and that crystallizes a lot for me, realizing that every single, police officer out there isn't necessarily capable of, the same type or the same level of decision making in those moments. Some are better than others.
That's real, man. I wanted to mention something. Going back to young Adam Toledo, I want to say, for one, rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's always bad when we lose someone, especially our youth, because we look at our youth as being the future. And when we lose someone at the age of 13 who hadn't even really begun to live yet and experience life as a young adult, let alone an adult, especially he had aspirations of becoming the very thing, a police officer, that took his life, but not saying that it was unjustly or justly. It's really, really unfortunate. I know, for example, Toledo had some challenges as far as his behavior goes, if I'm not mistaken. Just early that weekend, it might have been Friday or Saturday night, he was known, his mother said he was known for leaving the house in the middle of the night without anybody knowing. He'd be out in the streets, and she actually called the police to look for him. They were trying to locate him, but they hadn't located him. And then, the story just unfolded as far as him getting into some trouble, and then, the whole shooting situation with him having a gun. Police officers, to become a police officer, they're, for one, like Officer Lee was saying, there's a lot involved with that. you put your life on the line every day. When you wake up and put that suit on, put that uniform on, and badge up, there's a lot that says about the badge that you're wearing, and there's a lot as far as the responsibility and the accountability that you have to take going forward. But at the end of the day, every police officer that suits up wants to be able to come back to the very place where they started, which is home, back to their family. And so it's always something in the back of their mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, but I know even as a military police officer, we always want to come back home. You know what I'm saying? Especially even when we deployed over in the Middle East, you want to come back home so you can live your life every day. Because if you make the wrong decision, if you don't, think about your training, if you're not quick enough, if you're not responsive enough, if you're not, active enough, if you're not defensive enough, there's so many different variables that can end the very thing that you're waking up every morning to go to for. And that's your life, and to come back home to your family so you can do it all over again. But there's a huge responsibility for that. And so in those split-second decisions that JD was asking about earlier, which was a great question, it's always in every single officer's mind, in the back of their mind, that they want to come back home at the end of the day. And they have to be able to respond quick enough so that they can accomplish that goal, which is to go back home at the end of the day, hoping that that quick response was the best decision that they made. And so it doesn't matter if it's a 13-year-old, a 31-year-old, or 80-year-old. A lot of times when officers are fired upon, there's a thing called a use of force. Every department, as Officer Lee stated before, is their own business. They all have their own training on the use of force, the threat level, if you will. Officer's response has to correlate with the threat, if you will. And so in a situation where you have any kind of perpetrator shooting at an officer, he has to be able to level or meet that same threshold of force to give back. And so, you can't pepper spray someone with a gun, if that makes sense. And so I just wanted to bring that up real quick.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know that we had a question from JR in the chat. Are you able to see that question, Officer Lee?
Yeah, he can stand by and call me, and I will discuss that later. I'll show him some, that's JR.
Yeah, you know,
I'm
JR. Is he poking at you, brother? Is he poking at you?
he trying to stir the pot to up y'all ratings, so we won't use the word BUR. We don't want to have the algorithms coming that way, He over there behind some of those organizations like to stir the pot. But yeah, actually, to be serious, there is a such thing, okay? And John was mentioning earlier, and this is one thing I always talk about. It comes down to training. Like he said, that young man wanted to be a police officer, right? I actually work with the youth. And what I can say is this: I can't speak for all. Just like I don't know all of the careers that you guys are in, but I doubt that you can speak for every single employee of the organization that you're with. You can probably speak to the good things that your company stands for and what you do in that company to keep it professional and keep the standards that they have. And I really try and talk about that because it's important. If I'm doing the right thing, you got one more person doing that right thing. I'm setting an example, and hopefully those will follow. I mean, people do lose their way, right? So it's more important for us who do believe in doing the right thing to continue to do the right thing. All right, because you got to be that constant example. It's like most y'all are parents. Don't you try your best to set that example? Because how can you ask them to do something when you're not showing yourself? Because we know this with children. Oh, they do as they see, not as you say. So it's no different, right? So these are some of the important things. Like one thing as far as training, I can say we're talking about the use of force. So one thing that I got with is an organization. It's called USA Judo. They're the national governing body of judo in the country. Judo is an Olympic sport for you guys that don't know. And as a whole, police training, it needs to be revamped in a lot of areas. They still train some very archaic ways, and not on purpose. I mean, the biggest thing when it comes to training, you got to think about safety and cost. Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, any organization, they don't want to spend out money if people are going to get hurt. But now we're at a fork in the road where you're spending out more money because people aren't trained and the wrong people are getting hurt. So we got to make a decision, right? So for me, I've gotten involved and I've actually helped to create a program to better train people. And we actually just had a big class where I'm training. And one thing I've learned is like a lot of people's basics are bad. We always talk about guns. Now, here I'm gonna ask you all a question. What do you think the greatest self-defense weapon is?
Your mind?
Good answer.
Your hands?
Okay.
A bulletproof vest? I'm speechless on this
All
one.
right, so I go with the two that answered, I guess, right? Well, the first answer was pretty much the best of mine. All right, because you hear a lot of things. People say, "Oh, if I got a gun, I can defend myself," right? And I only bring this up because of this. The mind is it. All right. A lot of people have this misconception. Oh, I can defend myself if I have a gun. No, you suck that just more with a gun in your possession if your mind isn't strong. All right. People that believe, oh, I need to have a gun for my self-defense and all that. Well, now you brought a gun to a situation. All right. Remember, guns, knives, things like that, those are tools. All right. The yielder is the most important. So how you're trained, now that extension of your hand, that's how it's going to operate. So to say this without not speaking bad, training is key. Okay, the better trained people are, the better they can respond and react. And that's, you got all the notion of defunding. That's the worst idea I've ever heard. Okay, you need to reallocate funding for needed training. Okay, this is where the community, remember, law enforcement is no different from your public works. It's a service for the citizens. Okay, and this is the time where I believe citizens need to get way more involved. They need to be learning, well, how does your city operate? What are the needed services? Okay, the more people take a interest in learning the needs of the city, they're going to get better service. It's a two-pronged thing. We all got to do it. You can't just say, well, they need this. Okay, that's the worst thing you can do. Just say, I need this. Well, by not giving up any information, you don't know what you're going to get. And I'm an advocate. This isn't the first platform I've been on, and I always say this. You got to be careful when you just ask for stuff. Okay? Because I can say, well, I gave you what you asked for, but if you don't give me a detailed list of your needs because you don't know your needs, you're just going to get whatever you get. And I think that's the problem that's been happening for a long time. The citizens have to wake up and realize, have these town hall meetings, really talk about what they need. Okay? Because if you're not talking about those needs, I'm telling you, you're just getting, they do reactive things and you just get something because they can say, well, we made a change. And you're like, what? But that's not the change we wanted. And well, did you give a detailed list?
Yeah. That's when I'll go ahead, Dave.
No, I was wanting to chime in on what you said there. I think they're one of the issues that we have is like the wording and classification, because things can be they're not properly vetted properly. Like you said, like defund the police, and you were against that. And defunding is not defunding the entire organization, or that there's so many resources that goes to police that's not even being used. For example, let me ask you, do you think like domestic violence disputes, like so many cops should not be called in the scene? There should be therapists, or should be whatever counselors, whatever the situation is, there should be a level there for first, second, and third level. Like I work in an infrastructure where you have these levels of degrees here, and there's certain things that cops shouldn't have to call on. So when it comes to defund the police, do you agree that the resources should be allocated to social needs and then the police be called into?
All right, I'm going to answer your question first. No. Then I'm going to give you a scenario because I don't like to answer a question. And the reason I say that, okay, yeah, in your infrastructure, there's certain levels, right? But this is what I challenge you to. How do you put levels in place with emotion?
But you don't know that until you get to the scene, right?
Hard question, right?
Everything's got to be assessed, right? Because you say emotions, but you don't. You said emotions.
I'm sorry,
right?
say that again, please.
Okay. You said emotions, right? But you don't know that till you get in the scene. Like there's far as like evaluating the situation before you get there. So emotions, I guess, would kick in when you're actually there, of course, but there's levels, degrees until you actually get on the scene, though. Isn't that correct?
Actually, no, again. So you get a radio call, right, from unknown people, because you don't know those people personally, right? And if it says, hey, it's domestic, well, that's just what you're told. You don't really know the details besides what that person said. You don't know if the caller is the male, the female, the lover, whatever. You don't really know. So that's when, based upon these situations, how they can go from high to low very fast. You can't send a social worker out to every domestic call, because just like us, they would be have a, well, let me finish what I was saying really quick. Because I got friends in the social work industry, and I've been to my fair share of domestics, and being how they can come and go, I get the idea, and it sounds great in a Disney world. It really does. Okay. But because, like I said, how do you do levels with emotion? What do? You do a tag team if I'm the social worker and I run back out when the threat level goes high like that for that split second?
Actually,
and I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying give me an answer of how that would work.
The redefine 911 when you call for an emergency. When the idea is that when you say 911, the first thought is emergency, and the repurposing and to re-educating or whatever, how we do as far as infrastructure is not everything is an emergency. So don't you see how psychological when you put that in there, say 911, 911. So the beginning steps is the entry level of what is an emergency, is not an emergency from the actual individual that's actually making the call. And I say that goes back to education. Would you agree or not agree with that?
Well, I'll say you're absolutely right. People do think when you dial 911 it's for emergencies only, right? That's what a lot of people think. But is that how it's used? Unfortunately,
but the question I was asking is how it's used, but it's
a
like,
lot of,
but I was saying like that's how it's used. But the re-education and transition. Do you agree that there should be another infrastructure that if you pick up the phone, you have a problem, and you have 411 for information, you have 911 for emergency. There is nothing in the middle. So I'm asking this: do you agree that there should be a change or definition of something to come in place? Because everything is it's either high or information.
Well, you want to know something funny, and I can't speak for every city, but for example, we have a non-emergency line for us where I work, okay, in my city. And
that's great.
I'm assuming maybe other bigger cities might have the same.
Every city does.
But here's the problem.
The education, though, I'm saying,
problem,
though.
What do you get a response? Okay. Well, no, hear me out. Education is not going to help. All right. I'm going to tell you why. It's a financial
education
problem.
Information. I'm
Poor
sorry.
people call it police, rich people call it therapists. I'm being honest with you. I'm sorry. I missed, somebody said something. I didn't catch that.
No, I just said education. I said information. I worded that improperly there. That's not education. You said you have the information, you have that line there, but it's not out there. So that means like it's not getting out there. So it's the information is not getting out. I'm saying average person doesn't know that.
Well, okay, I'll give you an example. I can't speak for your city. In my city, 311, and we got other ones. They're advertised on billboards and everything. 911's only actually advertised on a bumper sticker. Everyone just knows 911, right? From TV and all that stuff. But the other ones are advertised. You do have the internet. This isn't the 80s and 90s no more. So, but the thing that I've experienced, and I'm not saying it can't change, so don't think I'm against it. I'm just saying for right now, what I've learned is, look, rich people call their therapist, poor people call the police, no matter what it is for. And when people, this is how people are. They're very impatient. I get a faster response with 911. So let's say 311 compared to 911. If I get a faster response, which number am I going to dial?
Yeah, 911.
True. True.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't know that. You get what I'm saying? So what ends up happening, another thing, people lie. And some people know how to say the right things to get an actual response. So a lot of times we think there's this miseducation, but we'll take it off this. For example, you have people with mental health problems that have substance abuse. One thing I learned on the job, and it was kind of hilarious to me, you take someone, they'll make it a call where it's a medical, where the fire department has to transport them to the hospital, right? And then the person with the substance abuse problems, they'll get the medication from the doctor and say, oh no, this is not enough milligrams. They know the exact milligrams they want for the prescription that gets them high. You know, they know what gets them exactly what they need. And I'm thinking like, man, so people know what they want to know.
Yeah, understandable.
Man, these have all. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I got a couple of just real quick things. I know we have some questions in the chat, and you gentlemen may have some other things too. I want to get to one solution-based thing really quickly. So first and foremost, Officer Lee, I want to thank you for your service. We didn't say that at the beginning, so thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you. I know you said you helped to start that training program to really get folks up to pace on the fundamentals that they may be lacking. So thank you for everything that you've done throughout your career. You said something, you had a point I want to harken back to earlier about the community asking for, what they need to further help the community. And the success stories that I've seen on the news happen when the police force and the community come together and they have these meetings and they meet and they forge these common bonds on how they want to be treated, what the expectation is, and what the perspective is from the police. What are some ways that communities can get more involved with having those and brokering those meetings with the police force to forge that, to bridge that gap, so there's more open and honest communication?
Oh, great question. So, like for example, most agencies have a community relations office. All right, that's currently what I work right now. And I mean, in those community relations officers, you have sergeants and officers that work various community-based programs. So anyone interested, the best thing is to find out what jurisdiction you're under, whether it's going to be a sheriff's office, police, okay, and find out about the community relations office, because you might be that person with that great idea that you can help implement. It starts with, like you just said, people getting involved. Like one thing we did recently, we did a community engagement event where we did a 5K run open to the public, as well as like the youth programs families. But we opened it out. It was open nationwide. Matter of fact, we had people from other states participate in the virtual 5K that we did. So there's a lot of things going on. And I mean, when you get more community members involved, I mean, that's what it's all about. I think right now our real problem is we just don't establish relationships in this world today. Everything's about relationships. Okay. Yeah. You'll hear stories of maybe your great grandparents or grandparents talking about, yeah, I remember the officer used to walk the flip beat. I knew Officer John and we had a relationship. Matter of fact, he lived 3 houses down and whatnot. I don't know if it's because we're in a digital world or whatnot, but we're not establishing those relationships. And that's what it's going to take. It's taking us humanizing each other. We got to appreciate, we all matter. All right. We got to appreciate, especially in your community you live, that's the best thing you can do. Get involved in your community if you want to see different. If everyone did that in their own community, it would all come together. I personally feel that's not happening. And I don't like using the word feel, but that's what I think, that a lot of people aren't as engaged within their communities. And when you're not engaged within your community, well, are you really aware of what's going on?
Yeah. Understandable.
You see that question, Officer Lee?
That's Tito.
Tito wants to know, why don't officers take monthly drug tests? In the chat.
Monthly, it depends on each agency. I can't say out of all the 50 states plus territories that's not happening. Also, not only is it just 50 states plus territories, I think we have a total like 18,000 agencies across this country. So I can't say which one is doing what and what not. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's one thing that's been very eye-opening that I learned tonight, is that the police force is not a monolith. Like you said, everything is state, city specific. But in the mass media, we tend to look at the police. It's one monolith, and it's not like that. Like you said, there's different rules, different regulations, different methods of training that vary, which adds so many different layers to policing, and to these interactions that we're discussing.
And that's why I really encourage you guys, look, go down to your local station, find that community relations office, okay? Because if everyone collectively got together and did such a thing, you'd be better off. Because like you said, every time I say that, people are unaware. What? I didn't know. Most people use the word police as if it's the Army or the Air Force, right? Even though we know there's an Army, there's multiple bases in the Army. There's multiple bases in the Air Force. Now, they're one entity and they operate as one, but it doesn't work like that. Most people, okay, I'll give you guys a quiz. What's the difference between a sheriff's deputy and a police officer?
I couldn't tell you that.
I wouldn't know that one. Never looked into that one.
See what I mean? So let me just give you guys a hierarchy of policing. The way it works.
Let me ask you real
state.
quick. I might be wrong. Yeah. Aren't deputies, are they voted in and police officers are hired in?
No, so the sheriff is voted in. So there's generally one sheriff. Then everyone let's go back to Mayberry. Barney Fife. Everybody know Barney Fife, right?
Yes, sir.
Who was the sheriff on that show? All right. Who was the sheriff?
Andy Griffith.
There you go. And Barney was who?
Deputy. What? He got deputized.
Exactly. Yeah. So he was a deputy. His 1-round 6-shooter and all, right? So generally the way it works is this. Let's take Chicago. Illinois is a state, right? Then Chicago is in Cook County. So
yes.
Then there's probably a Cook County Sheriff's Office. Mm-hmm. Then Chicago, the city, has the Chicago Police Department. So you have either, I don't know, does Illinois have state troopers or highway patrol? Which is it?
State troopers.
State troopers.
Okay. So those are the top police of your state. Then under them comes your county. Then municipalities. So that would be incorporated cities like Chicago or Juliet, whichever is the city where it incorporated.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, the cool part about this conversation is the knowledge that I'm personally gaining, because like you were saying before too, Jeff, and you as well, Lee, that there's so much miseducation about the police force, and there needs to be more education and people learning just the basics. Like, honestly, before you brought this up, I had never thought about like the hierarchy of police. Like, you just think that police are police, and that's not the case. And I feel more enlightened just by having this type of conversation right now. And these are the types of conversations that need to be held on a large sort of scale, on a larger scale, so that people are able to learn more about how being a police officer works, how things flow between different agencies as far as the police are concerned. And these basics are, I know that 90% of everybody else don't know them either. And things like this that are important and need to be ongoing, so that we can have better relationships with the police.
And you bring up a great point. And I say that's a start, because like right now, police is the hot topic, but most kids hate history. They hate anything politics, right? We kind of avoid that when we're in school. And I think that's the wrong direction. When you graduate, if the one and only thing it should be how your social structure is. All right? Because that's what's going to affect you when you get out there into the job market. That's going to affect you when you become a homeowner, what kind of taxes you're going to pay, depending on what city, what county, what state you're in. Okay? And most people have no idea this stuff. But it's almost a good thing with this focus being on police agencies, where, I don't know, this could be the stepping stone to people learn more about how government works. I look at it from a bigger scale. Yeah, you guys asked me about police, but hopefully I'm educating your audience about getting more knowledge about how the system works as a whole. And I mean knowledge, not emotional feelings, but actual knowledge. It's just like when you go apply for a job, the best thing you can do is find out the structure of that company, because when they interview you, you're going to look good if you actually know what you're interviewing for, right? Who is the CEO of the company or the manager, whoever it is? You get what I'm saying? the more information you have, the better candidate you look like. And if we start to look at it that way, I think it might change the minds of folk.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We have about 2 minutes here before we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. And I know a good point of clarification I want to put out there that we had discussed too is that we need to make sure that we refer to the organizations as police agencies as opposed to police forces. Is that correct, Officer Lee, in saying?
Yeah, because if you do that, you won't think of it as just one. Like I said, there's like 18,000 agencies.
Gotcha. That
just
makes
that
sense.
Small fix might help, you know?
Yeah, that's a mental thing right there. You think, oh, agencies. So agencies does take your brain in a different direction, just saying the police force. Again, force sounds monolith. It sounds like it's singular. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Any final words, fellas, before we go ahead and wrap up today's show? It's been that hour went by really fast.
Yeah, I know. just for me, man, this is an amazing station and opening up a different portion of my mind that I hadn't even thought about as the police force, as the police agencies are concerned. I think it's eye-opening, and it needs to be a continued discussion. And I would love if we can have Officer Lee on again to ask some more questions, because I know after this I got a whole sheet of questions that I had and I didn't even get to touch on them a whole lot. So I'm just grateful for him being able to come on tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. We appreciate you, man. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your knowledge. You educated us tonight, giving us your perspective. And I think it was great having you on, the fact that you have so much experience under your belt. Not only that, but experience with the youth as well. And so I felt like you were the perfect fit for this type of conversation, and you did us justice tonight. So we appreciate you. Bless you. Continue to do what you're doing, man. And we know that the best is yet to come for you.
Thank you guys for having me, and I hope
Go ahead, Officer Lee. Go ahead.
I would just thank you guys for having me, and I hope I was a good guest for y'all. You know, I always thought when me and Jay Steve was gonna do some radio TV stuff, it'd be a little different, but that's okay. We can do the serious professional thing too. So it's all to the good. Hopefully, if I'm a guest again, it'll lighten people up.
Yeah, we should have you on our Anything But interview series where we can talk about everything with the exception of policing. That's a nice little way we can mix that up. But yeah, any final words that do before we sign off?
Oh no, man, it was great information. Got to do this again, man. We only got an hour, maybe 2 or 3 hours next time. Who knows?
Exactly. Might need to expand it.
But thank you, a marathon pod.
Exactly. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode. Please be sure to follow us on social media by searching for Jumpoff Live. And we'll see you next week. Peace and love. You gotta hurt Jack.